much for Thank you so much for coming. So just to do some quick introductions, my name is Catherine. I am the coordinator for student community development at UC. So I kind of oversee and supervise the community coordinators, which we very lovingly call CoCos.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jennifer Hinton. I am the manager residence life here at University College. So I oversee the residence life program at UC, so the 3 residence buildings and all the staff that work there and support our students. That includes our residence dons, head dons, and program dons as well. So we will get right into it. Sorry, I am one device today. So just some group guidelines. It might have been a while since everyone's been on a Zoom call, but just make sure that your mic is muted, please. We ask that you submit your questions in the chat function. We will have a Q&A at the very end. So we will ask that you just save your questions for the end of the presentation. And then you may also use the raise hand function during the Q&A if you'd like to speak and ask your question as opposed to write it. And then we have Alil, who is our moderator today. She raised her hand there. So please message our moderator if you are experiencing any technical difficulties. You can also reach out to Catherine as well, and she can help support that too.
Perfect. Thanks, Jen. So before we start, we do want to do a land acknowledgement. Obviously, some of us might be on campus right now, others might be at home throughout the GTA, but we do want to acknowledge the land on which the University of Toronto operates. So for thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and the Mississaugas of the Credit. Today, this meeting place is still the home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are very grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land.
Right. So there we have our session outline. These are just some of the things that we'll be covering today. But before we get into all that, let's do some introductions. So hi, everybody. My name is Ulil. My pronouns are she, her. I'm going to be moderating this session. And then for the other Dons and Cocos, if you want to introduce yourself.
Sure, I can go first. All right, hello everyone. My name is Pranay. I use he, him pronouns. This is my 3rd year of donning. I have been a residence don, I have been a program don, and now I'm a head don in my final year. Yeah, I'm here to present, but also answer any questions that you may have. I'm in my 5th year studying human geography, history, and political science. So I've lived in residence since my 1st year. So I'm happy to talk about all of that and more. I'll pass it over to Veronica to introduce herself next.
Hi, everyone. I'm Veronica. I'm actually a 1st year PhD student. I just graduated from from undergrad this June, where I studied immunology and global health. Right now, I'm in the Department of Laboratory Medicine and Pathobiology. It's a mouthful. I was a program don my 1st year of donning. Then I became a residence don, and I'm a residence don again. So it's my 3rd year of donning. I'll also be presenting a part of today's info session. But yeah, okay, I'll pass it over to Kiara.
Hi, I'm Kiara. I'm currently in my 3rd year and I'm in Rotman, and my pronouns are she, her, and I'm also a community coordinator or a CoCo. And along with Ilil and Akshita, we're going to just be presenting kind of what the CoCo role is.
Yeah.
Pass it on to Akshita.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Akshita. I'm a 4th year poli-sci student. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm also a community coordinator. And like as everyone has said, we will be sort of here to facilitate discussion and answer any questions. The reason why I decided to be a community coordinator is I myself am a computer student, and I really wanted to contribute to the off-campus / commuter space at UC. So.
Yeah, and I guess I'll introduce myself as well. I'm Danielle. I'm in my 3rd year studying English, history, and education. My pronouns are she, her. And right now I'm in my 1st year of being a program don. But fun fact is I was a commuter student for 2 years before I became a program don. Yeah, excited to meet some of you and to hear some of your guys' interest into becoming a Don or a CoCo. All right, cool. So we just want to have some input from you guys to hear about what you think some of University College's values are. So you can feel free to share some of your ideas in the chat or otherwise use like the raise hand function to share some of your thoughts. Yeah, anything is welcome. Feel free to start brainstorming. All right, so super cool student leaders. Thank you, Catherine. You know it. We work our hardest. Okay, I see Michelle says community. Yashvit says teamwork. Fatima says inclusion, diversity, community, inclusivity, diversity, community, and building. Yeah, there's so much emphasis I see in the chat of community and inclusion, working together in groups, as well as some pieces regarding diversity. I think that totally fulfills University College's values. Yeah, and so we're really happy that some of you are able to recognize that and carry that forward. So yeah, our vision statement at University College is to create a welcoming community built on the long histories of non-sectarian education and research that challenges undergraduates to excel intellectually and prepare them to engage in the wider world. So yeah, as we've mentioned, we really want to encourage students to engage in the wider world within the residence-wide programs and have specific events that are run by some of your residence dons and the program dons, as well as, you know, as residence dons, we also acknowledge like living in residence. Students get to learn about different communities and experiences, engaging in things like learning through conflict resolution. And sure, the CoCos as well definitely contribute to the space that University College is itself. So yeah. So we're gonna move on to what is a Don. So yeah, if you guys have any, you know, we're gonna invite you guys to brainstorm a little bit again. What is a Don? And what do you think Dons do? So feel free again in the chat to mention some of the ideas that you have about the role. But also feel free to, again, use the raise hand function because I've been talking. I'd love to hear some of your lovely voices. So, shall wait. Fatima, go ahead.
I would say it's someone who takes care of others and puts other people's well-being forward.
Love that. That's so sweet. Oh, cute. Okay, I see some action in the chat as well. And so it says supporting students within a house and building community engagement. Absolutely, Adrian. Ensuring safety and well-being of all students. For sure, Michelle. And Alex says role models. Amy says dedicated upper year students that is available to those in residence and provide support in the buildings in the safe and welcoming environment. Yes, for sure. Absolutely, Amy. That is a lot of things that make up a Don's role. And oh, last one, somebody who could share his, her, their experience of university life. For sure. We're definitely working to be role models for you. And yeah, this kind of ties into what is a Don. So some of the responsibilities that Dons do have is to help create a supportive, inclusive residence community that includes or encourages inclusion and mutual respect for the needs of all students. We try to foster community that supports students with personal, academic, financial, interpersonal, and social concerns. As Dons, we also respond to crisis situations. Sometimes you may not see that, but we definitely do. And yeah, we supply information to residents from a residence life programming, facilities, and university services. And we work with our professional staff like Jen and Catherine to develop and facilitate education related programming in the residence context. And that's part of what I do as a program doc. Cool. I think that is all that has been mentioned. And yeah, so part of this is being a Don. You are recognized in an occupation where you are affiliated with a union. So the University College Residence Dawn is a unionized position with the USW Local 1998 College Residence Dawn Bargaining Unit. And yeah, the union basically, on behalf of all Dons, facilitates certain kinds of benefits that we receive, as well as sort of things that regulate our role as an occupation. So I'll pass it on.
Yeah, that was a really good introduction on what a Don is, but how about what specifically a UC Don is? So there are residence dons in 3 buildings. We have Sir Dan's or Sir Daniel Wilson, Morrison Hall, and Whitney Hall. So we do have single dons and co-don pairs. So the co-don pairs are basically like houses where you have another don that's paired up with you and you kind of don together at the same house. We have 1 head don in each of the 3 buildings. So for example, Pranay is a Morrison head don. We also have the living learning communities. So this includes health and wellness, global perspectives, arts and culture, and life sciences. So dons for LLCs or the living learning communities are basically just normal dons. It's just you have your house is basically just communities of students that choose to be in one of these 4 areas. We also have 2 program dons, so that includes Danielle this year. Okay, so there are quite a few similarities between these 3 roles. So for example, we have student support. So that may look different between each role. So for example, for a residence don, you might specifically have things like mediating house concerns. While for a program don, you would do the usual outreach and engagement, overnight on call, and responding to crisis situations. And that's the same as head dons. Specifically for residence dons and not program dons, we have student one-on-ones and residence programs. For residence dons, it's mostly house-related things. So for example, we have house talks, house events, and passives. While for program dons, these residence programs are mostly residence-wide. So they would be open to everyone else in residence. So that includes house talks where program dons are paired up with a residence don to do house talks. Program dons are also required to do 3 to 4 events per month and minimum 4 theme weeks. And they also have a liaison with the UCRC and the UC Lit and other student groups as well. When it comes to meetings, residence dons and program dons attend the same ones. For example, house meetings, building team meetings, full team meetings, and staff support meetings. So that's where you would meet with one of the professional staff, such as Jen. And for program dons, there are specifically the UCRC General Council meetings, which is the Residence Council. And finally, for head dons, on top of what they do of the roles of a normal residence don, they also have building team support. So they kind of dons a little bit. So yeah, like for example, Pranay would have one-on-ones with all the other Morrison dons as well. They would also support planning and running of the pre-service training, support don hiring, and also attend all of the same meetings. Additionally, the biweekly head don meetings with staff. Okay, so yeah, previous slide is basically a general overview of the duties of a don and may not include many of the specific duties and responsibilities of a staff member. So here's what a life of a don looks like. This is particularly a busy week, a busy month actually. So this is just an example of what it would look like in a more busy month. So for example, on Sundays, we would have bi-weekly team meetings or full team meetings. And then maybe on Tuesday, you would have 2 one-on-ones with students that you would schedule. And maybe the week after, you would have a one-on-one with one of the professional staff. You'd have maybe a house social event that you planned on a Thursday, and the next day you would have a one-on-one. So one-on-ones are basically just conversations with students, and that could take place like any day of the month, basically, as long as you're available. And you would have 2 to 3 on-call shifts. So for example, on the 23rd and 31st, you would have an on-call shift. Oh, and also the 6th. And another responsibility that you would have is meet with House executives on the House Council. So that would preferably be right before the House meeting. So we'd see on the 14th, and then we'll have the House meeting on the 15th. But sometimes there might be something that's unexpected. So for example, a student concern or crisis. This is something that can happen at any time and is not planned. So that's what it looks like. Emphasis on that. Okay, passing it off to Pranay.
Thanks so much, Veronica. Yeah, Veronica did a really nice job showing you what a monthly breakdown of your schedule might look like as a Don. So we're just going to take a look at what of the just general overview of what commitment might look like overall. So it's hard to really capture the amount of hours you're working as a Don when you're living in residence. So one thing that I always get asked when people find out I'm a Don is, is it like how tough is the job? How much time are you putting towards your job? I think a really important skill that you learn very quickly is compartmentalization, realizing when you can be a Don and when you are a student or when you're just a person, and balancing all those many different hats while living and working in the place that you work. Yeah, it's anywhere between 10 to 15 hours a week. And this not only includes all the meetings that Veronica was discussing earlier, but this could be one-on-one sessions that you have with your students. This could be the amount of pre-work that you put into throwing an event. Let's say you're doing a Mario Kart party night, or you're doing a common room decorating. So that could include, buying the snacks. That could be including buying buying the decorations, all of that as well. But it's definitely going to be busier during a busier part of the semester. So that first 6 weeks of the semester, as students are moving in, as you're getting accustomed to the job, you're definitely going to be spending a lot more time, I would say. And that's definitely something I found in my past 3 years of donning. Just not only getting to know your community, but also just putting in that little bit of work to make sure that the rest of the year goes smoothly. And definitely during exam season as well, just generally noticing that students may be more stressful during exam season or that midterm season. So you might be having, a little more conversations with students as well. Another point to bring up is pre-service training. So pre-service training is basically that boot camp that you do before you start your official role as a Don, not teaching you everything that there is to be a Don, but more so just giving you the fundamental fundamental work, fundamental skills that you can go on and then use when you're donning. A lot of this job is learning on the job. The pre-service training is 2 weeks in advance of orientation. So for the 2024-25 year, orientation will be pushed behind a week, or brought forward a week. So that would mean that pre-service training will be starting August 12th. So taking that into consideration, as pre-service training is mandatory, it is a 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., 6 p.m. kind of commitment every single day. And so it's think of like a summer camp, but with a lot more like skills and very much condensed. There's also one in-service day that happens during January, which is a nice, it's a mandatory training session that happens usually on a Saturday. Which is a great check-in kind of training where you've had 4 months of donning. So it's like you have context for what you're learning or what you're looking for in training. I cannot stress this enough. Donning is a primary, or should be, your primary co-curricular / professional experience of the year. It's a job which might require you to prioritize it over other extracurricular commitments over the year. Just because you never know what might come up when you're a Don, whether that's, there's a lot of things when you're working with a community, which it's not a bad thing at all. It's more so recognizing that when you're working with other people, you can't necessarily organize the month according to, like this will happen on a Monday, or this will happen on a Tuesday. So giving yourself some space to also focus on yourself and also being a student while being a Don is really, really important. So, thinking about what are the other commitments in your life that you might want to scale back on until you fully like get a grasp on like what being a Don is and how it fits into your schedule of being a person and being a student. Balance is something I think we all strive for in life, and if you're going to ask what's the best way to balance in the Q&A, I think we're all going to be like, we're still searching for it. But I think it's more so recognizing that you're a human with a gas tank, and that gas tank depletes over the semester. And so in recognizing that you're not going to be the same person that you are going to be at the end of the semester, and realizing that donning has a lot of responsibilities with it that may need it to be prioritized over other extracurricular commitments. But you as a student first, or you as a person and then a student first and foremost, might need to put that also first and foremost. Yeah. Right. Next up. So what are some of the benefits of being a Don? So I talked very much about like, the time commitments, but let's talk about very briefly about the benefits. There's so much to this job that's really, really fun. And there's so much I learn every year of coming back onto this team. And there's a wide set of skills that you develop, not only those soft skills of learning how to, have those one-on-one conversations with students or just with people in general, but also, learning how to listen actively, empathetically, knowing when and where it is right to offer support versus just offering a space to listen. And that's something that I found to be the biggest way of biggest carryover into my other like jobs and extracurriculars. And I've also found that being a Don or having that on my resume with those set of skills has been very, very, very fruitful or positive in my applications to other jobs and roles on campus, because recognizing that donning is a multifaceted role that involves a lot of different skills in itself. It looks really nice because I've been able to use my donning experiences in answering questions on different jobs on campus. Like being like, what's a time you experienced conflict and how do you resolve it? And I'm like, which one, like, how long do I have? But I think one of the most special things about this job is not only is finding or building that community within your house or within the residence. And it's really awesome to know that at the end of the day or at the end of the year, you will have made an impact on students that you will not have realized, whether that's the events you hold or whether that's saying hi to that same student at, whenever you pass by them, or whether it's the exam care kits that you pass out at the end of the semester. You do build a community and it's an awesome one to see. And last but not least, you get to be part of an awesome team called the Don team, where we do all sorts of fun things together, where there's so much to learn from everyone. But it's just, I've loved being part of 3 separate Don teams because some of my best friends have come from the Don team. Veronica and I met on the as program Dons, and we're still doing this 3 years later, which is awesome. But yeah. Great. I'll pass it over to Jen to talk about the money.
This is me, the money. I'm sure everyone's very excited for this one. As far as kind of the pay, so the pay is outlined within our collective bargaining agreement. So as Danielle mentioned at the beginning, this position is a unionized position. So what kind of the pay is outlined here. It's not a typical or traditional job in the fact you're not paid an hourly wage. So you're paid in monthly installments. So that's kind of outlined there. And again, this is also partial to the fact that not everything can be scheduled for the Don role, as Pranay and Veronica also kind of alluded to. Things kind of come up last minute on an on-call shift and things like that. So this kind of accounts for those pieces. So I will hand it off to the CoCos.
Yes, thank you very much. So on to the CoCo side of things. Before we sort of jump into what is a CoCo, let's just again have a quick brainstorming session on what are the roles that you might anticipate as being a CoCo, or sort of the values and the skill sets you may need to be a community coordinator at UC. And of course, there's no wrong answers, just sort of raise your hand or sort of write in the chat what you think a CoCo does or what it means. Yes, Michelle says creating a community for the commuters. Yes. We have a lot of great spaces at UC, which are sort of commuter centered and for students living off campus. So yeah, so we will definitely get to that point. Um, Adrian says organizing activities and planning out sessions with houses regarding important topics. That I think might be pertaining to the Dawn role specifically, especially with the houses. Like they probably have their own meetings with their own houses, but adding that to the CoCo role, we do organize a lot of activities and sort of plan out those activities for students coming to the CSC, which is a community student center, or and the CR, which is the Clark Reading Room, and yeah, so we do have a lot of great programming for off-campus / commuter students. Yeah, okay. So now, let's cut the suspense to get to the actual part. So, a community coordinator, what do they do? So, they plan and implement student life programming based on the needs and desires of the university college community. They foster and sustain an engaged off-campus / commuter student community. They also support students to necessary academic, social, financial, and health resources and opportunities on campus. And they animate the university college commuter student center, so the CSC, and the Clark Reading Room, the CRR. And this is life of a CoCo. So this is sort of a typical day or sort of what some of the job duties of a CoCo entail. So program development, so developing and facilitating events and programs, and evaluating outreach and engagement for student engagements. So oftentimes the way that we sort of work is we work in teams, and we sort of help each other out to plan programs and events. Some of them could be like exam jams, or what's another one that we had like a Taylor Swift listening party, which was really, really fun. And we made bracelets and it was a huge success. So yeah, like fun things like that. And community engagement, so collaborations with campus partners and resources, weekly office hours, actively connecting with university college, and exploring ways to develop engagement for in-person and online spaces. So every CoCo here, we have office hours. So half of our office hours are in the CSC and half of them are in the CRR. And this is a great way for students who are using this space to ask questions about like what do we do here, what is a CoCo, or like, hey, do you have any resources about academic success, or like how do I access the writing center? So we're definitely a great resource to use, and to ask any questions or concerns that students might have, or just if you need help navigating UC, because it can be a bit daunting, or just navigating campus in general, come talk to us and we will definitely help you with that. And yeah, and this is just another continued part of what I was talking about in the previous slide. So student support, so supporting orientation and transition programming for commuter students, supporting students with personal, academic, financial, interpersonal, or social concerns, supplying information on commuter life, resources and referral services, including academic, health, counseling, and financial aid, addressing student behavioral issues that impact the safety, well-being, or enjoyment of commuters in the CSC and the Clark Reading Room, or which violate the community standards, and assisting students with conflict resolution and crisis response. So as I think Pranay mentioned, that the pre-service training, we also train with the Dons, and we're well trained in all of these facets. So we know what resources are available on campus. We know sort of how to navigate conflict resolution. We sort of know how to support students with personal, academic, financial, all these concerns that they may have. So we're well trained for this, and of course we love what we do, and life is never boring as being a CoCo or a Don. So next I'm going to hand it off to Kiara, who will be talking about the time commitment.
Yeah, so essentially the CoCos every week, we can work up to 10 hours a week. It's not a fixed 10 hours a week, but it's normally a range within that. So, and we're also paid an hourly wage of $20.47 per hour. So just like a Don, being a CoCo should be your primary co-curricular or your professional experience of the year, because you do have certain responsibilities. And while this doesn't mean that you can't do like various extracurricular activities, or while you can't have other activities, you should still be able to adequately manage your academics and your CoCo responsibilities, and that should kind of be your priority. Because at the end of the day, there's definitely an emphasis on being a student, and that's extremely important. It's always you're a student first. But after that, you should kind of like be able to cover all of your CoCo responsibilities, just because it is at the end of the day a sort of leadership position, and you just have certain responsibilities that you should be able to fulfill. And I'll just move on to the benefits of being a CoCo. So this is my first year of being a CoCo, but I have loved it so far. I feel like you do develop a lot of leadership experience through planning the events and through kind of talking to different students and through training as well. You develop communication skills, you develop critical thinking skills, leadership skills, and you're also able to take on a community mentorship role when you're kind of talking to so many people in the community. So since U of T is a commuter camp, like it's a commuter school at the end of the day, and we do have a really large population of commuters, you actually do end up meeting people who you wouldn't meet in day-to-day lives. I've had such fun interactions with students that I wouldn't have had otherwise. And it's actually very, it feels really good to actually be able to help these students, because as a commuter, sometimes you don't know what resources you have as the same way as you would have access to it in residence. So being able to kind of engage with the community and just help students out is extremely rewarding. And at the same time, you also gain like professional skills. You gain like I mentioned, the leadership and community building communication skills. And this all applies to your personal growth, as well as you can apply this professionally when you're applying to other jobs, just in your career in general. It's honestly a great role, and I love it. And I'm going to just pass it on to Kate to discuss the eligibility.
Yes, thanks so much, Kiara. So the big question, are you eligible to apply to be a community coordinator or a Don? So this goes for both roles. One, so you must be a registered full-time student at the University of Toronto for the 2024-2025 academic year and being in good standing, meaning right now, like say you just finished undergrad last year, but you're starting your master's in the 2024-2025 year, you are eligible to apply for either role. You must also be able to perform as a Don or community coordinator for the entirety of the 2024-2025 academic year, which includes pre-service training that Pranay mentioned. Because orientation is starting a bit earlier this year, pre-service training has been brought up. So it will be from August 12th to August 23rd, 2024. So those dates are like mandatory dates that you will need to be there for training. Again, it's very much like a 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., 6 p.m. type of commitment. So kind of like a full-time job hours. So just keep that in mind. For the Don role, it is recommended that you have prior residence and or group living experience. However, this is not mandatory. It is not a requirement, but it is just something that is recommended. And on the other end, for CoCos, it is recommended that you have prior experience to living off campus or commuting to campus. And then, but again, this is not a requirement. It's just something that is recommended.
Okay, so looking at the application process, so a couple of points to consider when applying. I think the number one question we always get is, what kind of person are we looking for when we're hiring for either a Don or a CoCo? And I think it's important to remember that we're not looking for a specific person. We're not looking for, extroverts or introverts or anything like that. We're really looking for a diverse group of students. So students that are our leaders and students that we think will be able to help support and connect with our students. So making sure when you're thinking about applying, how you're able to take those leadership opportunities and those skills that you think would apply and be applicable to the Don and CoCo role, and really highlighting those for us so we can see what type of Don or CoCo you would be. So as far as the hiring timeline, so the applications are open. So they opened on December 1st and they close. So after we come back from the winter break, so Sunday, January 14th at 11:59 p.m. There is an application form. You can find the link on our website and just submit there. And then all the applications will be reviewed, and we will be having a mini interview. So the mini interview is a asynchronous interview, so it's a video recording. The dates that we have there, the 19th to the 23rd, that's the amount of time that you have basically to complete it. So that includes when you'll receive the invite to the mini interview, and then the amount of time you have until you can complete it. And then from the mini interview, we'll review those, and then a select number of folks will be invited to our group interview, so our carousel, and that's Saturday, February 3rd. We don't have the exact time scheduled, but you can anticipate it being between about like 10 to 2. So basically the group interview, it's an opportunity for us to see a number of students at the same time. And we kind of have you go through a number of different activities. Each of them is looking for very specific things we're looking for in the Dawn role. And then offers of employment will go out mid-March. So we will be reaching out mid-March to let you know if we are able to offer you a position for either the Dawn or the CoCo role. We will only be contacting successful applicants as they move forward. But if you make it to the carousel, you will receive either a yes or a no. So you will have a definitive answer if you do make it to the carousel. But if you, let's say, don't make it to the mini interview, you won't receive a communication from us, unfortunately. But for more information and some more detailed pieces, feel free to look at our website as well. Okay, so those are all of our not questions, but all of our info. So I'm going to hand it off to Alil to get us started with our Q&A session.
Right, perfect. Thank you. So if anybody has any questions about anything you just heard about the CoCo role, about the Dawn role, feel free to either put them in the chat or click the raise hand button if you want to say them out loud. Okay. Wait, hold on, I'm clicking on the chat. Okay, we're good. Okay, I will ask a question. Oh wait, great, we have a question from Michelle. Is the group interview for Dawn and CoCo separated, or is it going to be together? So I can actually answer that. I think if it's the same as last year, then it is together. It's the same questions, it's the same process. Dons and CoCos get to interact a lot with each other, both during the application process and during pre-service training. So it's kept together. Yes, Emma.
How many Dons are hired?
I can answer that question. So we hire 23 Dons, and that includes our 3 head Dons and our 2 program Dons. The number of Dons we hire from Carousel will depend on the year. So we also have returning Dons who are looking to return as well. So it will really depend on what our returning population looks like. So some years we have a high returning rate, and some years we have a bit of a smaller returning rate. So we don't know the exact numbers just yet. And that can also fluctuate in the summer as folks, accept grad school applications and things like that. So things can sometimes change on that. But 23 is the number of Dons we have.
Okay, thank you. I just had one more question. Do you know when the summer Dawn applications are?
Summer Dawn applications would be in March, and you'd be able to find information on that on our Instagram.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
We also have a question from Ella in the chat. Just to confirm, 75% of the resident costs are covered if you're in the Dawn role?
So the way it works is the pay is the 75% of the Dawn role, and then as well, you pay 75% of the room rate as well. So it ends up being like there's a little bit owed at the end, but you do make money each month. I don't know the exact number as I don't see the exact numbers, but there is a smaller amount that's made. But also I can hand it off to one of the Dons if one of them feels comfortable answering, but by no means do you have to as well. No? Okay, let's go to the next question then. Yeah.
Right. So yes, Amy.
Hiya. I just wanted to ask for Donship with regards to like experience. So I'm in my third year and I have a lot of experience from my second year that will help benefit the role in terms of the application process and then skills going forward if I do get it. Um, I don't have much this year. Like, is that sort of gap fine? Is that like it's a bit of a weird question, but just for personal reasons, I haven't been doing much leadership stuff this year. So is that okay?
Absolutely. As long as you have leadership experience, that's what we're kind of looking for. We understand life comes up. So it might not necessarily be, as much as you wanted in one year compared to another. So as long as you're able to articulate that you have leadership experience and those skills, that's what we're looking for.
Okay, thank you.
Emma?
How much leadership experience are we required to have?
It will honestly depend on the cohort, like what the pool looks like. But as long as you can say like you have some leadership experience, and that might not necessarily be UC leadership experience, it could be experience from high school, it could be volunteering with maybe a church or volunteering with a program in the community. That all counts as leadership experience. It doesn't just have to be UC specific.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions from anybody? If not, then for now I will ask one for all of the CoCos and Dons, which is the question that Pranay kind of referenced earlier. How do you balance your own personal life and your goals of donning / CoCoing while so doing your job, being a student? How do you not find yourself overwhelmed?
I guess I can take this on from a CoCo perspective. I think that with everything in life and just trying to find balance, I think time management is really important. Managing sort of your schoolwork, your CoCo work, and also your self-care time as well. I think that time is also precious too. And oftentimes we get, I guess, like just swept up with like work and school and like other things, and we neglect ourselves. So I think I try to pencil that time in as well. Yeah, I think just there are times where things are overwhelming. Like exam seasons could be something that's very overwhelming, very stressful, and I think this is sort of the time where at least for CoCos, we can definitely take a little bit of a step back from our duties, but I'm not sure about the Dons. But yeah, and yeah, I think again the key thing is just to manage your time as well as you can, and just staying on top of your commitments and your schoolwork and things like that.
Awesome, thank you. Do any of the other Dons or CoCos have comments they'd like to add, or that was a pretty good answer?
Oh, I could add stuff. Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important to recognize where that because you live where you work, there are challenges that come with that, but also opportunities. So for example, you're never far away from school, but you're also never far away from school. So, you can wake up 5 minutes before your class in Sid Smith and be okay. But I think also recognizing that there's a lot of work done in pre-service training to really get a good snapshot of what the year is supposed to look like. So you're not going to be suddenly emailed saying, hey, there's a house meeting the January house meeting is going to be this date. All of those dates and important dates of the job are told to you well in advance. And I think what's really been helpful is like sitting down and putting that all in my calendar, and also putting all of my schoolwork in my calendar and looking at where the stressful points are going to be. But I think the second really important point to this is really communicating that, whether you're working with a codon or whether you're working with a team. So as a head don, I both have, and a don of Brady, I both have a codon and a don and a team of dons that I work with. And I think communicating with both my codon when I'm having a stressful part of the semester, telling them like, hey, one of our students just came up to me letting me know that they might need a little bit more help with like navigating the resources on campus. and like letting them know, hey, do you mind like taking this on, and then vice versa, is really important, because I feel like you're working in a team. You might as well take advantage of working in a team by not only, you know, pulling your own weight, but also supporting those around you. So I feel like I'll be a liar if I say I've never felt overwhelmed in this job ever. But I definitely have learned so many valuable like skills and strategies from the different times I've been overwhelmed, that like in my third year, it's really like looking back at the challenges I faced in my first year when it came to time management, I'm like, oh yeah, like I've learned how to do like deal with that by implementing these set of strategies. So yeah, I mean, overwhelm is inevitable, but it's more so how you pick yourself back up. And I'm very grateful to have a very supportive team behind me, but also like being very open with my like support staff from like my supervisors. Like, so, and it's nice to have those kinds of check-ins from both the supervisors to me, but also me to my team. Yeah.
Right. Thank you so much, Pranay, for that answer. Another question that I will ask, because I think it might be helpful to some of you, is for our CoCos and Dons. What advice would you offer to somebody who is applying, who's going to go through this like 3-stage application process? You know, we all went through it last year or the years before. Do you have any advice that you would give?
I can answer this question. Okay, so this is something that I personally dealt with throughout my all 3 years of donning. It's the whole feeling of like the person that you are isn't fit to be a don, which is not true, because I'm personally very introverted. I don't like confrontation, and I felt like when I was applying, those were all the things that a don should be. But in actuality, you get chosen because of the person that you are and your lived experiences. And that's why we have such a diverse team, because we all have different lived experiences. So, you know, just believe in yourself. I did, and it worked out fine. So, yeah, just don't be ashamed of who you are and just live authentically. And yeah, don't try to be someone you're not. Renee, exactly that. But yeah, have faith in yourself.
Thank you. Yeah. I would also just I would add to that also just remember that while you're going through the interview process, you make it to the carousel interview stage, which can be a little intimidating. Group interviews, if you haven't done it before, that everybody is super welcoming and super supportive, and it's just like a good time. Ella, yes. Ella, I don't know if like you have like the raised hand button, if that's on purpose or okay, it was not on purpose. All right. Does anybody else have any questions? In that case, should we continue with the
Yeah, maybe we can do this last one and then we can wrap up if there's no more questions.
Okay, sure, sounds good. So then what is the biggest surprise that you have found, positive or negative, about being a Don or a CoCo?
I could answer this question. So as like a program Don, it's a little bit different than like the residence on role. So I don't run any like house meetings, but I do run some house talks and things like that. But regardless, that's not part of my answer. I think I found it so surprising that as a Don, I had so much flexibility in navigating the role with the support of our professional staff. Like every single professional staff that I got to meet in my role has been so supportive and accommodative to yeah, some of the requests that I've made to accommodate my schedule, or yeah, just offering me some really great advice and insights whenever I had any questions. So it's not to say that I didn't expect it, but I just found it to be one of the most pleasant surprises out of my time working in UC, especially not being a UC student, not living in res before, and being like basically like I'm a full-on baby. Like I have no experience in anything, and everyone has been so nice and welcoming to me. So love the team.
Okay, perfect. I think that can wrap up the Q&A section, unless anybody has any like last minute questions.
I think one thing to add to Veronica's point about not feeling like you are like I'm not fit to be a Don. I think there is no such thing as a perfect Don, and I think that's very, very important to recognize. And I think something you want to try to like, you want to be yourself, not this perceived notion of a perfect Don. But I think the biggest surprise I found after my first year of donning was how much of an impact you can have on students that you may never see again. And I think that's undeniable. Like, you will never understand your impact fully ever. And that's just something you have to live with. Because I found that in my first year of program donning with Veronica, we had events where, 65 people showed up and we were like, oh my God, this is amazing. But then we also had events where like 2 people showed up. But these 2 people are like people who then went on to have roles in leadership roles in like the community, just because like they had a really awesome time hanging out with Veronica and I doing some fun activity. But I feel like you don't realize the impact that you have until like years later, months later, when a student of yours comes and is like, hey, like, do you remember that event you had? Like that event I went to is the reason why I'm like in the program that I'm currently in, or things like that. So I feel like don't discount yourself just because you don't see the immediate effects. You impact so many people in this role more than you realize every day, just by being yourselves. So that's the really fun thing about this role.
Awesome. I think that's a lovely place to end today. So we just want to say thank you so much to our Dons and CoCos for coming and chatting with everyone. Thank you for everyone who came out tonight and gave us some of their Tuesday evening. If you have any other questions or anything like that, I think I have a contact. Yeah. Feel free to reach out to myself or to Catherine, and also like you can just look at our website as well. So there's information there. But otherwise, thank you so much and have a wonderful night.